Did God design marriage to be hard? And what makes marriage hard today? And why is it that we automatically assume that marriage is hard? And why is it that people who have been married tell you that marriage is hard? And why is it that from the pulpit we are told marriage is supposed to be hard? The real question is, did God design marriage to be hard? Today we're going to break down why marriage is hard and what you can do to improve your marriage. My name is January Donovan, founder of the Women's School, where we train women with the mindset and the skill set necessary to flourish in every arena of her life. Because here's the thing, your marriage does not only impact your spouse. Your marriage impacts your contribution, your career. It impacts your children. It impacts your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. It impacts your home life. It impacts your family. And so we have to understand the root cause of why so many people think marriage is hard. And so I'm going to show you an expert, which I'm a huge fan of, Erica, and her take on why marriage is hard, why raising children is hard. And I'm going to give you my perspective on why I believe marriage has been falsely assumed to be hard and the root cause of it. So let's break this down.
Right, is that most marriages, and maybe I'm wrong on this, so correct me if I am, most marriages break up, I think it's 2 years after having a child. Why is that?
Isn't that sad that most marriages break up 2 years after having a child? After the most amazing gift of life, that it becomes the root cause of breakup. I mean, we have to get to the root cause of this because that is such an alarming statistic. And we keep talking about therapy and we're talking about the symptom, which I believe in therapy, but we're not actually asking the right question, which is, why is it happening?
It's fucking hard, mate.
Sorry. He's right. I'm with him.
Yeah.
So the test of one's resilience is if you can manage hard.
How do you learn resilience? How do you learn to manage hard? Where do you go to learn how to become a resilient woman in a very comfortable culture? Now, I'm talking mostly about cultures in the West, but we don't have built-in resilience when women cry over dishes, when we think that managing our home feels like a daunting thing, when we live in a microwave world, when things are at our fingertips and we think that, when our children are crying, it's hard. How are we really training children to become resilient? And so this is a very important question because if you think about it, 150 years ago, when there was no dishwasher, there was no washing machine, did they think that motherhood was hard in a way where they had to do everything by hand? Or have we lost perspective by weakening the woman because of the comfort of technology that we have robbed ourselves the importance of becoming resilient, and that has now compounded into motherhood and also our marriages? Let's continue.
You're going to climb Mount Everest, and you go into it with the expectation that you're going to climb a little hill in the Yorkshire countryside. You're going to collapse, pretty much. You're not going to have brought the right equipment.
Okay, when you climb Mount Everest, what is essential? Training. You need to learn how to breathe. You need to learn how to have endurance. You need to learn how to use your equipment. There's training necessary to climb the steepest dreams of our life. There's training that is essential for us to feel as though we can actually arrive at Mount Everest. And that today, what is the training necessary to actually taste the gift of a beautiful marriage? I mean, just think about it.
You're not going to have prepared and trained for it.
Why is it that we presume there's no preparation and training necessary for marriage? I mean, really, think about that. Why do we presume that there isn't a training for marriage? Think about it. Most marriages today suffer lack of communication, right? But if you go to in a pre-K now or preparation for marriage, we don't talk about the importance, the basis of communication, which is 7% words, 38% tonality, and 55% body language. And so what we're basically saying is that there's no training on marriage. What about budgeting? What about mind management or emotional command? What about learning how to actually forgive as a script? What about learning how to honor our wounds? What about learning how to study together and dream together? These are training that we can have prior to marriage, but we don't have it as a society. The assumption is that we find the right person and that the training happens on the job site. It's like, hey, listen, by the way, you're now CEO, become the best CEO and achieve the fulfillment that comes from being a CEO. But you have no training how to manage people, how to manage your mind, how to plan, how to project. All that is an expectation of failure. Why? Because training is essential to climb Mount Everest, but so is actually training for marriage. But we presume that there's no training prior to. This is a massive oversight. And we apply this in all the different disciplines. We think the same thing as in motherhood. We think the same thing as raising teenagers, or we think the same thing in our careers. But in our careers, imagine the training necessary to become a lawyer, a teacher, a nurse, an engineer. The training to perform your duty well is built in our society, but there's no training in how to be a woman. The foundational training for motherhood, for womanhood, for to find the right spouse, presumably assume we don't have that. That is something that we have to course correct.
But if you tell them, look, the view from up there, it's the best in the world. But to get there, you've got to go through a lot of hardship.
Okay, where do you learn how to dream as a couple? Right? Because that Mount Everest, the view up there is amazing. When do you learn to collaborate your dreams? How do couples come together and say, how do we design our life together? What is it going to look like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, to design our life intentionally? You wouldn't climb Mount Everest without a map. And yet we think, go get married, but don't plan your life. Why? Because planning your life means that you're usurping God's plan. Really? Or is planning our life, subordinating it to God's plan, is what God wants us? Not to say, well, this is it. This is marriage. No plan. The road to hell is paved with a good intention. Well, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So we have to be very intentional about training couples to plan every arena of their life. Let me give you an example. If you don't have a plan on how to eat healthy as a couple, well, maybe you'll wake up one day and you realize, what is wrong? I can't even get up. My body is sore. Or I don't feel like I'm the right weight that can continue to have optimal energy. Well, without a plan, we plan to fail. And so learning how to eat healthy as a couple is essential. Learning how to manage your mind is essential. Why? And then we teach couples how to dream. Why? To say, look, cast a vision of a future that's flourishing. Why? Because without a vision, we perish. And yet we presume that couples know how to study the desires of their heart, how to cast a vision, how to dream together, how to collaborate they dream, or how to goal set or how to plan. All of these are skill set that are essential to a flourishing marriage. And so we say, well, look at that view to the sunset, look at a great marriage. It is true that when you cast a vision for a beautiful, flourishing life, you have to endure the hardship necessary to actually bring it to fruition. It is sanctifying. It is actually going to really work on your discipline. But to think that we don't teach couples to dream together is a robbery of their capacity to live a flourishing marriage. But we presume that that's not the case. We presume that automatically we know how to be married. That is not the case. Imagine if we train couples prior to finding the right person with the right skill set and mindset, hundreds of skills to communicate effectively, to learn how to say no to myself, to learn how to say no to other people, to communicate your boundaries, to not feel guilty by honoring your boundaries, to know your self-worth as a skill. Imagine people coming together skilled. Imagine choosing the right spouse for you and not knowing who you are, not having the skills to make decisions. Women make 25,000 decisions roughly a day. So tell me, if we're an untrained decision maker, is it possible that we make the wrong choice? Absolutely. But we presume that we know how to make decisions, therefore we know how to choose the right spouse for us. That is not the case. And then we presume that we know how to actually live married life. It is a tragedy to me that we don't think of the necessary training to find the right person, be with the right person, and continue to grow with that person. And maybe the reason why marriage is hard is not because it was designed by God to be hard, but maybe because we have untrained men and women who come into marriage who lack the skill set to actually communicate and build a beautiful, flourishing life together. That if we actually did train men and women, that maybe marriage wouldn't be quite as hard. Now, I am not suggesting that hard is not part of life. It is part of the human experience. But hard, unnecessary hard, because we're untrained, is different than hard hard that is in pursuit of our highest and best self. Because ultimately, when you dream together as a couple, you'll be met by what? Challenges and difficulties. But see, dreaming comes for discipline. That the challenges that we endure as a couple, if it's subordinated to the dream that God has placed in our heart, to the design that is worthy of our day-to-day discipline, then it gives us hope. So today, couples suffer with hopelessness, that it can't get better, that this is the way life is, and that we're just waiting for retirement, that motherhood is supposed to be hard, that being married is hard. Is it really? There should be hard moments, but it shouldn't be a perpetual agony in the garden. Why would God design something that becomes the basis and the infrastructure of society to be a walking Gethsemane? Remember, God, had 30, Jesus had 33 years, and I could imagine it was flourishing for him, and it was beautiful, and that, yes, he had those moments of sacrifice, but it wasn't every day for the rest of our life. How many women today are in a prison of their own marriage, and they've been told that this is it, offer it up, this is as good as it gets, and life is hard, and marriage is hard, and then we are falsely advertising to the rest of the world that marriage is hard, and this is the way God designed it, and no wonder they don't want anything to do with God. They're afraid that they will end up in a marriage that is not flourishing, and that's the way God designed it. I reject it. I reject it so much because I don't believe that God designed marriage to be this perpetual agony garden. God designed marriage to be full of life. God's glory is man fully alive. God's glory is couples full of life. But to endure the challenges of life and to have life, you have to actually train and develop formation, the formation of our human mind, body, and spirit, the formation of our character. The development of skill after skill after skill. And we have to break it down into micro skills. It's not just like, okay, be kind, be charitable, develop the virtue of fortitude, all that, hundreds of skills under fortitude. And so we need to equip women in a very different way that we did maybe 100 years ago because of the way the world is going. It's fast, it's loud, it's distracting. But maybe marriage is not the way we have assumed it to be simply because we're undertrained.
But you can do it. We're going to train you. We're going to get you ready. And, you're not going to sleep, but it's going to be great because the joyful moments will be more joy and love than you've ever felt in your life. But then there's going to be these terrible moments where you're exhausted. If we tell you and you have realistic expectations, then you can manage it together.
But see, how do you manage it together when you don't have skills to manage it together? When you don't have communication skills, when you don't know how to hold your spouse accountable, when you don't know how to hold yourself accountable, when you're not a woman of your word, when you can't hold your spouse accountable to becoming a man of his word, and you've tolerated, him becoming a lesser version of himself because you feel bad, or that you've got to pick your battles. Well, all of this is not recipe for our children to want to be married. All of this is not recipe to have more life in our life. And so having the right expectation needs to actually be a conversation we need to have. And the expectation is, are we growing together as a couple to develop our mindset and skill set so we can be more available for our children, more importantly, available for God? How are we training couples to set the right expectations of growth, of development of skill set? It's sort of like, maybe you started in a company and you were an intern, and then you move up into maybe an assistant. Well, in order to move up, you've got to develop a new skill set. And then maybe you become, manager. And then all of a sudden you have to learn new skills to become manager. And then maybe vice president. Every single time you scale your life, you also have to scale your skill set. Every season of marriage, you also need to develop skill after skill and layer those skill sets so that you can flourish together. Why are we not talking about the most important, I would say part of being married or developing as a couple is a formation of each individual human person? Because a deformed person coming into marriage with another deformed person, lack of formation, not only lack of formation, but they've been formed inappropriately or perhaps, traumatic things have caused the deformation of their soul or their character. Imagine what that's like in family life. There's collateral damage for lack of formation. So this is not something that I think we can continue in our culture. We keep talking about the symptom, but never the solution that is rooted in the root cause of the crisis, which is a lack of formation of the character, a lack of formation of the human person. But imagine if we did. Imagine what kind of marriages we would have. I would dare imagine that if you actually train couples, they might not even pick the person that they thought they would pick. because they now have the skill to pick, to choose. And why am I passionate about this? Because I, as in the woman's school, have been privileged to witness beautiful women who are trapped in a very painful marriage. And not because they want to, but because they've never been trained with the right skill set to actually develop to become the woman they want to be, the wife they want to be, the mother they want to be. And it's now spread to their spouse, and it's now spread into their family life. But more importantly, their lives are not inspiring to themselves. And they think that they have nothing to offer this world because all they're doing is they're being hijacked because every day their marriage is hard and that is all they can do. See, a stressful marriage does not give us an opportunity to be selfless. Let me share this with you. When you're stressed in your brain, it feels like being chased by a lion, but that lion is a very hard marriage. When you're being chased by a hard marriage like a lion, that's what it feels like. All the cortisol hormones are putting in your body. You're hijacked. It's hard to be present. It's hard to think of creating opportunities to serve humanity. It's hard to connect to your children, and it's hard to actually be available to other people. Stress inevitably makes us selfish, not because we want to, but because it hijacks our capacity to think creatively about our capacity to contribute good in society. So it is important that we give women, men and women, tools in marriage so that they're not hijacked, so that they actually have the capacity to create something beautiful, because I believe that God intended marriage to create something beautiful that is eternal, such as a child, but more importantly, their legacy. The legacy that inspires other couples towards truth, beauty, and goodness. That is how God designed marriage, is to have more life in our marriage so that it becomes a walking, living testimony of who God is. But today, because of a lack of formation, as we define in the women's school, is taking a design, chiseling your soul, your mindset, your character, your body, soul, to become that design. Right? I want to be a kind woman. Now let's break down the mindset, skill set necessary to become the kind woman. That's what formation is, a formation rooted in the design that you want. That's how we define formation in the women's school. So let's really think about how we are forming men and women to have beautiful marriages. And we have to maybe reassess the formation that is necessary to actually prepare our spouses, to prepare our children for marriage.
If we tell men and women lies about raising children, then when they have children, they collapse.
Are we training? Okay, so this is something I am extremely passionate about. Are we training mothers to be the kind of mothers they ought to be? Imagine where we have a world that offers mothers to be skill after skill after skill, building a routine, saying no to herself, learning how to pivot from a negative circumstance, learning how to communicate when somebody manipulates you, learning how to talk to doctors, learning how to ask for your needs, learning how to take time for rest, learning how to pivot from, recalibrate your expectation, learning how to manage your emotion, learning how to manage your mind and flip your script, learning that your worth is unconditional. Can you imagine the training that is necessary to actually transition to postpartum? And why is it that in our postpartum crisis, we don't think about the preparation apart from Lamaze training or birthing for mothers? Why are we not offering the training that integrates a mother's mind, body, and spirit and allows her to flourish as a mother? Did God design motherhood also to be hard? The very thing that brings life on earth is the very thing that robs us of life. I reject it. And I reject it because of the training that we offer in the women's school. I have seen the transformation of women by building skill after skill and now have more life in their life. And that life becomes inspiration to their children. Inspiration comes from the Latin word inspire, to breathe life. How can we actually win the pro-life battle if women have no life in their lives? And the only way we're going to have women have more life in their lives, especially mothers, is to actually train them. Their formation is essential to be able to actually incarnate truth, beauty in the world, to become the mother that they ought, to become the wife that they ought, to become the career woman that they ought, and to actually integrate it and to know how to integrate it, right? Because for me, as a business owner, as a mom of 8, and also as a wife now almost 20 years, the skill that I have to continually build is something that if I don't train on a daily basis, I could see my marriage crumble and suffer, or my motherhood. But see, because somebody trained me, being a mom of 8 children is the easiest thing that I get to do. I'm not trying to impress you, but to impress upon you that it's not just that we have hard moments, but that you can flourish as a mom of 8, and that it could actually be easy when you have the right mindset and perception that marriage can actually get better after 20 years, and that you can actually integrate a career in context of your marriage and in context of family life, and that it doesn't have to be apart from it. Ultimately, it's about doing what you're called to and you're created for in that particular season of your life. But that also requires a formation to know when to discern, to know how to make decisions, to know how to manage your mind. All of this, if we just gave women access to training, it would change our life. And so I want to invite you to think about your own training as a woman, as a wife, as a career woman, as a mother, as a single woman. What training did you actually have to prepare you to live your best life, to flourish in every arena of your life? And if you didn't receive it, then we have to stop blaming ourselves for the choices we were never trained to make. But what is the solution? The solution is that you have a choice to be part of the solution or become a victim of your external circumstances. The truth is that there's always a choice, that you can choose to train yourself right now in this particular circumstance by just developing your mindset and your skill set. And that is what we offer in the Women's School, is the formation of your womanhood so that you can become a better vessel for truth, beauty, and goodness. So you actually can show up into your marriage, into your career, into every part of the arena in a way that is full of life, that you don't become part of the problem, and that you're not a victim to the problem, and that you become a radiant light of Christ, and that you don't hide your light under a bushel, because what you offer this world is not yours to keep, but yours to give. Your contribution is your divine commission, and your contribution is unique in every season of your life. So the development of your mindset and skill set is essential for your deeper fulfillment. Why? Because ultimately, your fulfillment comes from fulfilling God's will in your life. But how can you do God's will if your will is not formed? Even worse, when your will has been deformed because of the negative influence of our current culture. So I want to challenge you, ladies, to train yourself just as athlete trains, women ought to train. And I believe that if we all train together and we create an infrastructure where we change the landscape of our culture, and we train together and we study together and we grow together, we would change the landscape of our culture, because we're not going to change it politically. We're not going to change it, through all organizations. We're going to change it individually. One woman's formation at a time is what's going to reclaim womanhood in our culture, and that each one of us ought to take responsibility for our own deep interior formation. And that is how we rebuild marriages, family life, and womanhood. And to me, never been a better time for deeper formation. So I want to invite you, if this resonates with you, subscribe to our channel where we offer deep mindset and skill set training. Join the Women's School and our New Woman Masterclass, which is really a comprehensive, integrated formation of the human person, of our womanhood. We call it the New Woman Masterclass. You can join us. You can join our free community. But also, if you feel called to build a community of women, if you feel called to mentoring women, join us, because we need mentors that are going to create an environment of women training and studying together. So if this all resonates with you, share this video, like us, and also join our movement of human formation for such a time as this.